All right. Oh, I love starting my sermons after 12 o'clock. That's a sign of a church that is not too concerned with everybody running off to do something else. So I appreciate it about this church. Well, as you know, I was gone there. Where did the Millers go? Okay, I just want to make sure that this gadget that you set up on my phone works. Okay, apparently it does work. Okay, let's see. Wow, okay. I can change slides here from my phone. Amazing. I was preaching in Croatia a week ago. Had a baptism there too. I baptized the young man. And they set it up for me to change my slides, and after a while it didn't work, so we had to go back to the computer room doing everything. But today I'll try and guide you through what I went through here in the last 3 weeks. I went over there because they invited me to teach a class at a seminary for the pastors who are taking their master's degree. And I taught them an intensive class this week about the pastoral work and try to teach them some principles and give them some ideas on how to do the work of a pastor. And I had a great time, enjoyed doing that class. And by the way, just since we are talking about the calendar, I'll be gone again as of October 2nd for 2 weeks. And I'm going to Indonesia this time. Our Indonesian church here in Denver, our church that's going to meet here this afternoon, they're paying for my trip to go over there and do 2 weeks of evangelistic series in Indonesia. So I'll be gone again for 2 weeks. Milos will preach one of those weeks, and the other Sabbath we are still looking for a speaker for you. But that's, just so you know, that's happening first 2 weeks of October. But anyways, I went to Croatia. I haven't been there for 2 years. I want to tell you a little bit about the country. As you can see on this picture, this country is all about tourism. I mean, modern to the hilt. Everything that you see over there, I mean, top of the line hotels, beaches, pretty expensive too in places, you know, I mean, they have everything that we have here in Florida or California or any one of these places. I mean, on one hand, the country is rich and prosperous. On the other hand, you can go and find things that you really don't want to see. Here you see the beautiful ocean, the water there, extremely refreshing. You jump into that water and you swim and you come out and you feel like $1 million because it's not hot, it's not cold, it's just kind of right kind of water, Adriatic Sea. But you also see other things in that country. You see things like this. In the middle of a city, they had a war there 20 years ago, it ended. So you're walking through a city which otherwise seems to be totally normal. City transportation, buses, hotels, everything else. And then you come up and you see a building that's shot up with bullets and shot up with missiles and rockets and whatnot. You know, and you just stand there and you look at this thing, and there is so many abandoned houses and buildings. And this is one of the nicer ones that I'm showing you. There is this one. I saw this one in the countryside I was driving without a roof. It has a warning in front of it. It says, do not come onto this property because there are mines here still, 20 years later. And as I was driving in that area, I came across a police car, and 2 guys were out there. They had a huge fire over there, forest fire, that was burning everything up, you know, and they stopped me, waved me, and I stopped, and they said, you better not come out of, if you stop, don't walk off of the road and go into the field or into anywhere. The guy says there are mines here still from the war. So you have a country that's on one hand prosperous, it has everything. On the other hand, it has these remnants of the war. And people are also feeling the remnants of the war in their heart. You know, you pretty quickly you realize that you're dealing with people that are friendly, and they like tourists, and they like to have fun, and they like music, and they like to drink wine, and they like to enjoy life. But you start talking to them, and you realize that there is also a certain amount of sobriety there in their life. They are a lot more mature, serious about things. They had to leave their homes and run and be gone for 2 years and come back to their homes 2 years later to find out that everything was burned down to the ground and everything was gone. Had to start from scratch. So you have this sense in the beautiful country, but you have this sense of soberness and seriousness, even with young people. Because even today, they don't know what's going to happen next. There are racial tensions, religious tensions. There are issues, and now they've been burned once. And they felt thousands, 250,000 people died in Yugoslavia when it fell apart. So everybody knows somebody or has somebody in their family that died. So they are looking at this whole world a little bit different, with a little different eyes than we do here in the United States, where we're not attacked by anybody on this land. The last war we had was what? Civil war here in this country, So we don't feel that sense of violence that they have felt over there and that they still live with today. There are people who are still scared and afraid that, if they stay there, that things are going to change. This is a mountain range that rises about 2,000 feet off of the sea level, and this mountain is called Velebit, and this is a famous mountain in Croatia. And the place where my dad is born is just here where I'm taking the picture from, several miles away, you see. They say that on top of this mountain there are fairies who live there. Powerful fairies. And you have to be scared of them and watch out what they do, you see. And I took this picture, Richard, so you can see that we have mountains in Croatia too. This one is so high up, half of it you can't even see because of the clouds there, you see. My dad, when I was a kid, he told me that when he was a child, that it took him, he was a young man, teenager I guess, he says he went up there, it took him 3 or 4 days to climb up there. And I always wanted to climb this peak, but never had a chance. Even this time when I went there, I wanted to go up there, but those cops, they told me, don't go now, not now. You got to maybe next summer, you see. So this is the house where my father was born. Not the house that you see, the big house over there, but the little house. See the little house? Do you see how everything is overgrown because nobody has lived there now for the last 15, 20 years? So my family in the house where my father was born and my grandfather, this is a microcosm of Croatia. You see, it's a country where people are living from. I like to say to people, this is the most beautiful country in the world, and everybody wants to live there. Everybody wants to go somewhere else. And if you go online and if you look up Croatia and look at the pictures, you will find out that surely it is, if not the most beautiful, it's one of the most beautiful places on earth. And yet the economy, ethnic strifes, just war that happened there, everybody is leaving. In the last 2 or 3 years, since they became the part of the EU, European Union, 1 million people left. Young people, doctors, dentists, teachers. They literally have hospitals that don't have staff working there because everybody went to Europe. My cousin, in this next picture you will see him. He was born in this little house. The guy on the left, he's my cousin, 93 years old, my first cousin. And the lady to the right is also my first cousin. My father and her mother and his father were all brothers and sisters. You see, But his dad was a lot older than my dad, so he's 93 years old. He lives on $300 a month, retirement check. She is educated and works in a big city, and she works for less than $800 a month. And their kids, they just want to leave. They want to go somewhere else. And they go to Italy, they go to England, they go to Germany, they go wherever they can find a little bit better job. So my family right there, what you see, is microcosm of that country. I'm in the United States. They're over there struggling. Their kids have left, gone to other countries of the world. The village where my dad was born, in the summer, packed. I was there the last week of August for a few days. Beaches were packed. Kids, tourists, you hear German, French, you hear all of this stuff, September 1, everything is empty. Everybody's gone. School started, everybody's gone back to school. The village, completely empty. Now, between now and June 1, there is going to be maybe a dozen people living in that whole vast area of that part of the country, because everybody else is gone. You see these beautiful houses, mansions, with swimming pools and everything, satellite dishes, empty, sitting empty for 9 months, because nobody is using them. Nobody wants to live there anymore. They go back to their work in Germany, and then they come back during the summer for a few months, live there, enjoy life, This is the kind of country that is. Religion, people are not interested. Economy is bad. There is this strong, very strong disinterest in anything religious. When you talk to people, people don't want to do nothing with religion. Most of the country, 80% is Catholic. They don't go to church. If they do go to church, it's on a Christmas or Easter. And as soon as they walk out of the church, they're drinking and cussing and going to have some big party where they're going to eat a lot of food and drink a lot of booze. No religion whatsoever. The church, I went to talk to the pastors, to teach them about how to reach people. The school, Seventh-day Adventist school, used to be located years ago in this castle, medieval castle, that the government let us use for the school. See, so I went there now to talk to these pastors about how to reach these people who are not interested for God. By the way, let me tell you about this castle. This castle was built in the 1500s. And people there in the country, they were subservient. It was a feudal system. You see, they had to work for the man who owned the castle and give him all the produce, everything that they got in their fields, you see. Now, years have gone by. We used the castle for 40 years for the school. The country government now gave it back to the descendants of the original owner who lives in Austria. He came and shut it down, closed the castle completely so nobody can use it. He pays the farmers, because he got the land back too, he pays the farmers something like $2 an hour, and then in September he sends the trucks from Austria. They fill it up with corn, with grapes, with everything that was grown there, and they take it back to Austria and they sell it. And that's how he makes money. And people are working for next to nothing. This is the reality of their life. Inside of this castle, you see these huge tapestries and pictures that are just abandoned. I think they are worth a lot of money. This guy doesn't care. All he wants to do is make money off of these people in the village who work for him for next to nothing, you see. We don't use the castle anymore. Some village lady opened it up for us because we asked if we could go see it, because that's where I went to school, high school 40 years ago, and she was kind enough to open the doors for us, and we went in there and looked at it a little bit. And then I had the class. This was my class, a group of 20 pastors, and we talked about the work, the church. And they told me the following. They said, look, as a pastor, I'm dealing with dysfunctional member. They'll say I'll have a member in my church who is an elder. He gives a lot of money to the tithe money to the conference. He sleeps with his neighbor's wife. I can't kick him out of the church because the conference president won't let me. Because the money is coming in. You see? Or they'll say I'll have people in the church who are doing all kinds of things, and I'm stuck with it, can't do nothing about it, because it's not like Denver, where you have 25 churches, and if somebody's not happy here, they can go somewhere else, you see. It's not like that. So he has to deal with dysfunction inside of the church, and then they also have to deal with the leadership of the church, which is stuck in inactivity and in this mode of just we do it the way we always used to do it. There is nothing we can change. The church is down to 2,000 members for the whole country. 2,000 members for the whole country. And it continues to go down. People are leaving the church, young people, life worries, struggles in a society, lack of future. And I was thinking, all of this is similar to what we have here in this country as well. In the Seventh-day Adventist Church, generally speaking, we have leadership that is resigned to status quo. You see? They are now going to do in Croatia what they're going to do in order to try to grow a little bit. They're bringing Dwight Nelson from Pioneer Memorial Church to do a week of evangelism, 10 days. And I asked them to give me the list of the titles. Same old stuff. And the Pope is the bad guy, and you got to take off your jewelry, and you got to become a vegetarian, and then you can be a Seventh-day Adventist. And they're going to spend $100,000 on this in a Catholic country, where if you say anything bad about the Pope or Mother Mary, people are just going to turn around, spit in your face, and walk away and never have nothing to do with you. See, the leadership resigned to the status quo. We can't reach people any other way, so let's bring Dwight Nelson and let's talk to them about vegetarian lifestyle. And the frustrations are just huge for these pastors. Frustrations are huge for the churches. They see young people leaving. And I'm thinking, how is that different than what we do here in the United States? Young people are leaving most churches. They're not interested. They want to make money. I don't blame them. We live in a society where you can't. You heard today from Darren. We live in a society where you get sick, and if you don't have money, you can basically go jump in a lake. So I don't blame young people who want to go out there and put all of their effort and energy into making money because they need money to survive. How do you blame something like that? But it's just this drive to survive and to live, be able to afford things for your kids. It's just become overwhelming. All over the world, not just here in the United States, all over the world. And it's one of the reasons why Adventism in this country is basically failing. And all over the Europe. And I wonder, what is the answer? So this is my cousin. I went to visit him. This is when he was young. I don't know if you can see that picture. Looks like Milos? You know, Milos comes from the same city where my mother comes. So who knows? He may be related to me a little bit too. I don't know. But this is my cousin when he was young. This is when he was middle-aged. And it's kind of, you can't see there, but you can see his wife on the left and you can see his son in the middle. His son got sick with brain cancer. And he suffered for years and died. And after his son died, his wife couldn't take it, couldn't deal with it. She cried for 2 years, and then she died. So those two people in the picture are dead there on the left side. And he's still alive. He worked in Germany all of his life. He's worth well over $1 million in cash. I'm not talking about properties and whatnot. So he has all the money in the world. His son is gone. His wife is gone. I talked to another cousin about his wife who died. I want you to hear these stories. And this other cousin said to me, when she died, I didn't go to her funeral. And I said, why not? Now, this is my cousin now that I'm talking to. First cousin, not the lady you saw in a picture, but another one. I haven't seen her since we were kids, since I was 8 years old. I haven't seen her in 50 years. So we hugged. We love each other. You know, we come from the same, her mother and my dad are brother and sister. But I'm talking to her, and I say, why didn't you go to the funeral? She says, when I was young, and so this is now 30 years ago, she says, I got pregnant, and they were all living in Germany. She said, I got pregnant, and it didn't go well, and the baby died at birth. And she says, this woman, her cousin's wife, she says she never came to visit me. I want you to think about this, about human nature, about how we are as human beings. This is not the condemnation of my cousin, because she was hurt deeply when this thing happened, that she did not get to visit from these folks. And she just held on to that. And 40 years later, when she died, she returned the favor and didn't go to the funeral. You see? And I asked the pastors, when I was teaching them, I shared some of this with them, and I asked them, who are you as a person? I asked you a few weeks ago before I left on a trip, who are you? What kind of a person are you as a human being? Because this has to do with this problem that we have of a church being abandoned by young people. This has to do with this problem that we have of a church that's not growing anymore but stagnating and basically becoming a meaningless institution within the larger society. This, what I'm talking about, that's what I believe is the reason for where we as Seventh-day Adventist Church are, and many other religions too. You see, so now, this man is no longer young. He's 80 years old. And I visited him in the nursing home. And he is in a wheelchair, my cousin. Why? Because his right leg is amputated because of diabetes. Runs in our family. And I visited him in this nursing home. His son died. His wife died. Nobody visits him much because nobody cares. They figure he has a lot of money. He can afford a fancy nursing home, right? So they're not visiting him. I sit with him. He has one more daughter left. And I say, does she come to visit you? And he says, no, she hasn't spoken to me in 3 months. And I said, why? Because when he realized that he's so sick that he's not going to live much, he put together a will. And in the will, he left half of everything of what he owns, half he left to his daughter, who doesn't speak to him, because he left the other half to his grandson that was left over from his son, who died from cancer. Now, his daughter didn't like her brother's wife, so she's mad now at her dad for not... Why, you guys think this is bad? Are you kidding me? We had a funeral here at Arvada Cemetery. We had a funeral for a member of our church that everybody knows here. Not everybody, because a lot of you are new. But most older people remember. And the family came from all over the place to bury this member of ours. They literally had just about a fist fight in the graveyard as the casket was lowered into the grave. I think Jim was there with me. It was so traumatic, you forgot. All I know is that the funeral home director came over to me and he was in shock. You know, this was Seventh-day Adventist. Same thing. What they fighting about who got what. Human nature, you see. So I'm talking to these pastors and I'm saying, what kind of churches do we have anymore? Do we have a church that will care for a man like this? That will go and visit him? Do we have a church that will try and comfort him? This man doesn't believe in God. When I came in to visit him, I stayed for 3 hours. When I came to visit him, he told me about all of his pain and suffering and everything that went on. And then he says, you know, I don't pray. I don't pray because I don't think that God, even if he exists, that he cares about anything, you know. And by the end of the 3-hour visit, he turned to me and he says, I witnessed to him. And he says, you know, maybe God does care about me. Well, you know, and I wonder why he said that. Because I didn't give him any major wisdom. I didn't give him nothing new. But you know what? Yeah, you're right. I'm his cousin from America who came, and they have this notion about Americans that we are all rich and that we can just do whatever we want to do. So his thinking was, this guy comes from America, he can go do whatever he wants to do, go have fun, go run around, go party, and here he is spending a whole afternoon and evening with me, listening to all of my pain. And by the time I was ready to walk away, he says, you know, maybe God does care about me too. Why? Because he saw that somebody else cared about him. Why are not our churches growing? In Croatia or here? I'll tell you why. Because people get the sense that nobody cares for them. This is my cousin that you saw in a previous picture. She had a brother that I met a few times when we were kids. We lived in a communist country in 1971 through 1980. It was a communist country. Her brother, when he became teenager, my first cousin, he became associated and affiliated with Croatian nationalists that were looked upon with great anger and hate by the government because they wanted to separate, they wanted to have Croatia as their own separate country from Yugoslavia. So at the age of 17 years, he got arrested. They took him to jail for 6 months. Every day they beat him. And this is not the beating. This is a beating. This is a beating where 2 or 3 policemen come into your cell with nightsticks and they keep hitting you everywhere, all over your body, usually your back, your gut, your chest, your neck, you see. They try not to damage your head, but from here to here and the back, it's all fair game. They beat him every day for 6 months. And then when they realized that he was going to die, they released him to his parents. And sure enough, he came home and his ribs and his kidneys and his liver and everything was so damaged by the beatings that sure enough, he died. He was like 17, 18 years old. Died at the hands of communist government. So now I talk to my cousin. She doesn't smile much. Because that has been on her mind ever since it happened. She goes to church every morning, to Mass, Catholic church. She wants to see her brother again. We talk a little bit about religion. I cannot disrespect her religion, Catholic religion, where she goes every morning to find solace and comfort. How dare would I disrespect that? See what I'm saying? But what do we do, Seventh-day Adventist Christians, with people who are Catholic? We are in a huge hurry to point out to them the error of their ways. You see? And people like this, like her, they would be open to talking to me. And she is. And they would be friendly to Seventh-day Adventists. Except for the fact that as soon as they come into contact with us, what do we try to do? Try to step all over what they cherish and give them something else. Where are we going as people, as a church? What are we doing? We have the leadership, and I think here too. I'm going to spend all kinds of money on some sort of a meeting. It's going to drive a point home about all of our cherished theories and doctrines and ignore the emotional state of the people that we are talking to. So I try to explain all of this to the pastors. Try to explain to them about this lady on the right that's laying down, 97 years old. She's my aunt. She was married to one of my uncles, my dad's brother, the oldest in the family. And she's now in a nursing home. And absolutely nobody wants to go see her. Why? Because when everybody moved away from the village, went to Germany to work. When everybody moved to the big cities, all the kids grew up, she was left alone in this house, dilapidated, broken down house. And when the winter time comes, it's cold over there. And over there, poor people like her, they don't have the funds to pay for electricity, for the heating. They just use electricity for the lights. So they have a wood stove. In the wood stove, you need wood. She couldn't buy wood because she didn't have any money. My uncle, when he died, he worked as a farmer all his life. He did not have any retirement checks coming in. So what did she do? The family had a lot of almond trees. And these almond trees, they grow to be this wide, and they are pretty strong and sturdy and beautiful trees, and they have you can have a beautiful harvest of almonds at the end of the season if you take care of them. Well, she cut a tree down to warm up. Next winter, she cut another one. And she's 97 years old, so there was a lot of winters there. He died 40 years ago, my uncle. There was nobody left to take care of her. And now I talk to my cousins and they say, well, she cut down all of those trees and that's why I hate her. Human nature. Human nature. And I said, well, I didn't say it. I was thinking it. You all lived in Western Europe. Why didn't one of you spend $100 at the end of the hot summer and bought her a couple of yards of firewood? And then she wouldn't have the need to burn the almond trees to stay warm. Nobody wants to go see her. Not even her daughter. Not even her daughter, because her daughter is same thing. Now, mom doesn't have anything anymore. She's not going to leave me anything in her will, so why should I go see her? And I'm thinking, is it materialism that's driving people away from God? Is it just money and give me more? Or is it something else? Is it maybe this feeling in people's hearts and minds that I just don't care about you? You do your thing, I'll do my thing, I don't care. I don't care if you're cold and hungry, because you should have thought of that when you were young. It's not my problem anymore. And I think when the people outside of the church see these attitudes inside of the church, they want nothing to do with any of us. That's what I think. That's what I think is going on with religion all over the world. Dr. Benjamin Warfield, he was a professor of theology, you can see here at Princeton in the late 19th century. When he got married, he and his wife, on their honeymoon, went to Germany for their honeymoon trip. And they were climbing a mountain in Germany, and when they came to the top, a storm came. His wife was hit with a lightning, and she became immediately disabled. Couldn't walk anymore. So these are young people in their 20s, just married. His wife becomes completely disabled, bedridden. He takes her home and starts taking care of her for the rest of his life. Now, he was a famous theologian and a writer, wrote books, and his colleagues and people around him, they said to him, why don't you put your wife into a nursing home? That way you will have more time to do things that are important for theology and religion and your work, your life's work. And he said, she is my ministry, she is my life's work. And they say that the story is that he was never away from her for more than 2 hours at a time. He'd go teach his class, come back, take care of her. And in the book, The Person and Work of Christ, which is considered his most important book, he wrote about Jesus, his whole life was a mission of mercy. His entire ministry is summed up as going around the land and doing good. That's what Christianity is all about. And the Bible in Matthew 9:35 confirms this. Then Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every sickness and every disease among the people. He didn't do seminars. I don't know why I have such an aversion to these seminars anymore. But he didn't do seminars. He didn't teach people about what to eat. He told people when he healed them, he says, go and sin no more. You know what the sin is. We all do. The work of mercy is what's lacking. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with what? Where is that? Where is that in our core beliefs? Compassion for them because they were weary and scattered. Distressed, basically, like sheep having no shepherd. And then he said to his disciples, look, the harvest truly is plentiful. Everywhere you look, you see distressed people. Emotionally, spiritually, tired, worn out, with struggles of this life. Harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Who are the laborers? What should be the most important characteristic of a laborer? The word is right on the screen. What is the most important characteristic of a laborer in this context? It's right there. Yeah, you see it. Compassion. Those are the kinds of laborers that Jesus is looking for. He doesn't need teachers of the law. He doesn't need professors of theology. He doesn't need fancy books and doctrines and all of this other stuff. That's what Jesus is looking for. And he says, pray, therefore, to God, Lord of the harvest, to send out laborers into his harvest. Now, I say, and you say, and preachers say, and church says, and conference, we all say, let's go out there and do the work for Jesus. Let's go out there and give away the steps to Christ, and let's go out there and do a health seminar and all of this other stuff. Look at the text. Jesus had compassion for people. And then he says, pray that God will send out the laborers. If you want to go out there, this is very simple now, what I'm about to tell you. God is sending you out there. Every one of you. Qualified beyond measure. If you have but only one thing in your heart, and that's that compassion. People say to me, I don't know what to do. I'm no Bible worker. I don't know. I can't give a Bible study on Sabbath. You don't need to. You don't need to. All you need to figure out in your life is if or not you have an ounce of compassion in your heart for people. If you do, you do. And you do your part, wherever you are. You do your part. You live your life. You study, you work, you run your business, you do whatever it is that you do. And in that context, you're compassionate to people around you. Your workers, if you have workers, your colleagues, if you have colleagues, your bosses, if you have bosses. You're compassionate. You stop and you listen for a minute. You stop and you hear their pain, their issues, their troubles. That's what compassion is. That's the only way how people will know that there is God. Is by what they see in you. So, as you leave here today, be one more song, but after that, when you leave, what do you project when you're out there? Are you oblivious to everybody else? Let's not do that. Let's not do that. I gave you this list here, sent an email, and I gave you the list. I see the world that's obsessed with materialism, people disenchanted, faith gone, lack of direction. What is the church? Church is the place where people who don't have hope can come. Church is the place where we don't have all the answers. We talk about that all the time. But at least we can try and give an honest answer. Church is a place where we see God, not just gifts from God. That's what I want us to be. Place where imperfect people like ourselves can come together and be ourselves, and nobody's going to judge you for your faults or your weaknesses or your problems. If we are honest as Christians, if we are honest as a church, and that's my point here, only an honest place can help people do what? Search for God. Not find God. I did not want to say find God. I used to say that in the past. We're here to help people find God. Well, how do we help people find God when we are searching for Him too? I come to realize that all I can help is help you search for God. And we do it together. We struggle in this together. And to me, searching for God is the ultimate human behavior, and finding, getting, receiving a glimpse of God, I think, is the ultimate human achievement. That's what I think. We're never going to know God fully. But if you can just catch a glimpse of God, you have achieved. But I want to turn it around, and this is the last thing I'm going to say. What if you could project a glimpse of God to somebody else? That's the work of the church. And until we do that, until we project a glimpse of God to somebody else, things are not going to get any better. And when we do, when people start catching a glimpse of God in your behavior, in your eyes, in the way you care for them, in the way you are there for them, then everything is going to change for the better. God bless you. 2 more Sabbaths I'm preaching in a row, so don't miss. Bring a friend. Amen. Perfecto.